Right. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for coming to this cooking demonstration hosted by Everyone's Harvest. My name is Elisa, and here at Everyone's Harvest, we run certified farmers markets and community food programs in Monterey County. And we currently have farmers markets every Sunday in Marina, Mondays in Pacific Grove, new starting next Tuesday at Alisal, and then Wednesdays at Natividad Medical Center and Fridays at Salinas Valley Memorial. So lots of markets to visit during the summer. And you can shop for fresh fruits and vegetables directly from local farmers, including ingredients for recipes that we'll learn about today. And if you use EBT or CalFresh benefits at our markets, you can receive an additional $10 to spend through our Market Match program. So just come visit us at our info booth to learn more about that. And let's review a few logistics for this cooking demonstration before we get started. I am recording this demonstration, so please feel free to turn off your camera if you prefer not to be filmed. Also, please keep yourself muted during the chef's demonstration. If you have any questions, feel free to write them in the chat and I will relay them to our chef. And then at the end, we'll also open up where you can ask questions directly. And to make it easier to view, I recommend you pin the chef's video by clicking on the three dots in the upper right corner of the video and click, and it should say select pin. And that way it'll be in the main video that you'll see during the demonstration. All right, so now today we're being joined by Chef Brandon Miller of Chef Stash in Carmel. So let's give a warm welcome to our chef, Chef Brandon. Take it away, Chef.
Hello there. To another lovely cooking demo. Fast forward to summer here, and we're going to work with some summer fruits from the market. We're going to make something my mother used to make in the 60s. It's called Willie's Crisp, and you can look it up. No one really knows who Willie was, but it's a very famous crisp that was made in the Bay Area and was published in the San Francisco Chronicle years ago, and it's just a really nice fruit forward dessert, and that's what we're doing today. Some things with fruit. So it's basically a macerated fruit into a gratin dish. I have a gratin dish here. You can use any kind of Pyrex, whatever. And the fruit's going to have sugar and a little bit of flour, and I put a little bit. This isn't in the recipe, but since a lot of the summer fruits are very sweet, I started adding a little bit of lemon juice and the zest of a lemon, the outside peel just slightly grated, kind of pumps up anything if it's too. And that is one thing about this recipe. You just kind of have to adjust to the sweetness of your fruit or how much sugar. The sugar is called for is either half a cup or 3/4 cup for the actual fruit. I tend to go on the lesser side because the fruit these days is always very sweet and nice. I like to do a combination of stone fruit and berries. I like blueberries in it a lot. As a kid, I really liked blueberries in it too. Today, we're going to do these white peaches, blackberries, and blueberries. The peaches, and in the market, you get a lot of in the farmer's market, you get a lot of these more heirloom varieties of peaches, and some of them are going to be what they call cling peaches, and those are peaches where the stone doesn't come free. They're not freestone peaches. I think some of those varieties, I believe that what happened was they started hybridizing until they got loose seeds, so it was easier to eat the fruit. But in that case, all you need to do is cut very close to the seed and kind of wedge. We're going to cut little wedges. This is a lemon from my garden. Don't try this at home. All right. So I got these white peaches. They're fairly stone-free peaches. They're a little tight to the seed, so there's a couple of tricks. But like I said, you can just peel. You just kind of cut close to the seed if you want. But I tend to like to cut them just in half the normal way, right along the seed, and then just lightly twist it. Try to get it out without bruising the fruit too much. If you bruise it a little bit, it's not that big of a deal. Take the seeds out. And alternately, you could do this. You could just cut wedges now while it's on the seed. I find it a little bit more difficult because to get off the seed that way sometimes. See, I'm already having trouble. I'm going to go right in the bowl with those. And I keep one really sharp paring knife hidden in my house so that I always have a nice sharp one, because they seem to get dull really fast. Because I think people use them for everything in the kitchen, and not just preparing vegetables and fruit. So I like to have a really sharp one. Yeah, these guys are pretty tight. So anyway, there you go. And I'm just gonna actually cut these in pretty big. I'm gonna cut them in sixths, because over the cooking process is about 40 minutes, and we're gonna macerate the fruit in the sugar and a little flour, like I said, and a little lemon juice. The recipe says to do the topping first, but I like to do the fruit first because I like to get a little sugar on the fruit, because that tends to draw some of the fruit juices out of the. And you can even put a pinch of salt in there if you wanted to, but there's a little salt in the topping. So, but the sugar does the same thing as salt with fruit. It draws out some of the juices. And so what we're looking for is about 5 cups total. I'm just going to guess. I always do guess because I like to just do the ratio that I want. And I think about the size of my pan. So what I'm going to do is put the sugar. I'm going to kind of go with all these blackberries. There's about a cup and a half here. They're nice, huge blackberries. And then and the blueberries are kind of cool too. The blueberries and the blackberries are really cool because they kind of give it this blue kind of bubbling. I've got one in the oven right now, so hopefully the reveal will show that, and the blueberries kind of peek through and the juices kind of come out the sides. I'm gonna use about half of these, like 2 cups. So there we go. Got a nice, and this is half a cup of sugar. You know, I'm not going to use the half a cup. I'm going to use less. And then I've got 2 tablespoons of flour. That's just going to kind of make it, it's going to kind of bind the fruit, make the sauce kind of thick and bubbly. And I'm just going to toss this fruit together and put it aside so that it starts to extrude some of the juices. So to review, that's 5 cups of fruit, half a cup to 3/4 of a cup of sugar, 2 tablespoons of flour, all tossed together. That's step 1. Step 2 is the topping. And it's a little tricky. But it's not. After you make it a few times, you realize what it's supposed to look like. And I'll show you that in a second here. So the topping is basically equal parts of sugar and flour. So it's a cup of sugar, a cup of flour. It's a teaspoon of baking powder. Make sure it's baking powder, not good baking soda. And then what activates baking powder is salt. So you have a half a teaspoon of salt. I'm using sea salt. I like to use sea salt when I bake and kosher salt when I cook. It's a little saltier and it's a little finer, and it's kind of better for breads and desserts and things. So that's that. And what I've realized after making this a million times is that mixing it really well at this point is, watch out for that, is very, makes it a lot easier. Kind of, it's almost like, see how it's coming out? It's almost like sifting it. Just kind of make everything's mixed together really well. I think it helps the chemistry too, the whole thing. I've got these, I don't need them. I've got one egg. The recipe says if it looks too dry, add a little bit of a second egg. I really, as long as your eggs are pretty big, pretty nice size, I think one's fine. And I'm going to take this fork and just beat the egg a little bit so that it's. You saw the one thing I did one thing I was going to talk to you guys about really quick, and I did it so quick that I didn't think about it, but I have another egg here. When you crack eggs for anything, you don't want to crack them on the edge. You saw I cracked it on the table, because what happens is if there was any salmonella on this egg at all, any bacteria, it's going to be on the outside. It's not going to be inside the egg. So basically, if you do this, you're driving the bacteria inside the egg. So all professional cooks just go straight on a flat surface, and then and that way you don't drive that bacteria inside the egg.
Wow, I just learned that I've been cracking eggs wrong my whole life. That's a good tip.
We got a couple of them. All right, and now I kind of make a well in the middle, and I just pour the whole egg in there. And then I'm just going to kind of tuck the ends, kind of start bringing the outside to the middle. And you want it to be kind of like a sandy sort of cornflake looking situation. I don't know, it doesn't really look like anything when you're done. But it should be pretty kind of dry. And what I do at this point, when I get, you can wear gloves if you want, but what I do at this point is I actually get my hands down in there. I've noticed to get it to the dry state that I want. And really, you can see there's kind of clumps in there, but it's starting to like come together, and it's plenty wet for what we're doing, because we're going to put a whole stick of butter right on top before it goes in the oven. Now, serving this, you definitely, it's really good with whipped cream. My mother and we both always did. I use brown sugar. I made fresh whipped cream with brown sugar in it and a little bit of vanilla, which I really like. That's kind of San Francisco 60s hippie sort of dippy kind of stuff they did in those days. But it really goes well with the brown sugar and you could probably use brown sugar on the fruit too. I don't think the topping you could get away with it because there's molasses in it, and it would. You can see where I'm at now. See, it's kind of like a nice crumbly. It's not wet. It's plenty wet though. I mean, they say to add a little more egg, but I've never needed to. At this point, we're going to prepare the dish. Let that sit for a second. I'm going to toss this fruit one more time, because I'm thinking some juice is going to start coming out of here. It looks like it is. We're getting a nice glaze. Yeah, it's still cruising along really nicely. Smells fabulous. Too bad you can't smell on Zoom. Maybe they'll figure that out. Maybe they'll do Zoom smell soon. Okay, another trick. We want to butter this pan. I despise buttering things with putting my fingers and my hands in there and trying to butter it, or it's a drag. So what I do is I take the wrapper, and this has been out of the fridge just for a minute, so it's slightly soft. So I'm going to get some residual butter on this piece of paper, on the actual wrapper. I'm going to put this in here, and I'm going to put this in the microwave to melt it. You can melt it any way you want. It's just faster this way. And then you take the butter and you actually use that to butter the dish. Let's mess. can always put a little piece of butter in there if you don't think there's enough butter on the wrapper, but usually there is. There's plenty of butter on here. This guy buttered really nicely. Check that. I did 30 seconds. It usually takes about 30 seconds to 45 seconds. It looks good to me. And I'm using sweet butter, not salted butter. I usually use sweet butter in all my cooking and baking. There's a couple exceptions, but very few. Okay, see, this is starting to get really nice and glossy and some exuding some juice. I'm just going to put that, like I said, experiment with all kinds of different fruit. You know, you might, if it's apples, you might have to cut them smaller and cook them longer and just kind of use your head. That's kind of how I do this, the sugar too. I just kind of say, oh, if this is sweet, really sweet fruit, I don't put as much sugar. If it's not that sweet, I put more sugar. You just got to kind of, and then I just kind of push this down. I'm trying to get it a little bit flat because we're gonna put the topping on, and then we're gonna, so I'm kind of on a flat surface so I can get this nice crisp topping, because it is a crisp. So we're looking for a nice crisp topping, and that's why we have the baking powder in here and everything. And then I'm just going to evenly sprinkle this through the whole thing. My French bulldog Nugget, she just broke into the kitchen because she likes to cook. She likes to watch me cook, and she likes to be right underneath my feet. So I have a little gate thing to keep my dogs out, but she's a master of breaking into things or all that stuff. So we'll let her kind of cruise around. She's looking through one of the cabinets right now.
It's always good to have a helper, I guess. While you're
She's kind of a character. I'll pick her up and show them to you guys in a second. Right on cue is the okay. That's the timer for our stunt crisp. So, and then, okay, so I have the melted butter, 1 stick of melted butter. I've got the crust on there, and I'm just going to kind of evenly, really slowly kind of butter the whole thing. And some of the butter goes down in, and the rest goes into the crust, and then makes it nice and crunchy on top. So that's it. Let's review. It's five cups of fruit, 1/2 to 3/4 sugar, 2 tablespoons of flour. That's the fruit mixture. Then a cup of sugar, a cup of flour, a tablespoon of baking powder, 1/2 teaspoon of salt. That's the crumbly mixture. And then 1 stick of butter, 1/4 pound of butter melted over the top. So, and boom. And then I didn't use my lemon actually. So that we're doing one with lemon, one without. So normally I would zest. That's why I had the zester here. I'm sorry, I forgot to show that to you. Anyway, I just take here's a zester. When I do the fruit, see, it's not in the recipe, so I forgot. I just take the outside of the lemon, give it a little boom, and just toss that in the fruit with the juice. Probably this lemon is so big, I would probably use just 1/2 lemon juice. It's just to get the acid up. Again, it's only adjusting if your fruit is very, very sweet. And so it's not really in the original recipe. I'm going to sprinkle this on top just because I can do that. And I think it'll come out fine. All right, now we're going to bring out the stunt. Oh, and I do recommend putting it onto some sort of parchment paper on a sheet pan. So when it does leak, like this one leaked a little bit. I'll put that one in a minute. And that's it. So basically, either some really nice whipped cream, fresh whipped cream, or a really nice vanilla bean ice cream is excellent with this. There it is, Willie's Crisp. Enjoy.
Wow, that looks great. How long, can you tell me how long you cooked it for? What temperature?
Oh yeah, sorry, I didn't do that. 375, and it's for 40 minutes. I go about 45 to, I wait until you get this really nice brown crust on here. 40 minutes doesn't seem to be enough, at least in my oven. So I go 45 to 50. I check it at 40. It's never done, so I always go another 5 minutes or 10 minutes. Let me I'll just kind of crack in here and you kind of see what's going on in here. You can hear it. Got this nice crust. And you see how it rose up. It's nice and bubbly in there and juicy. Definitely serve it in a little bowl with your ice cream or your whipped cream on top. Any questions?
Yeah, it looks great. Folks, feel free to unmute yourself if you want to ask a question, or write it in the chat and I'll be happy to pass it along. And I did try to take notes on the recipe, so I'll drop that in the chat.
You also can Google it. It's called Willie's Crisp. It's very famous 60s dessert from San Francisco. So I grew up with this one. Oh, and a nugget. Smash cut to the French Bulldog.
Gotta see the sous chef. Oh.
She's got kind of a big tongue for her mouth. Sticks out sometimes. What are you doing, Nug? You doing, Nug?
She's probably thinking it smells good and wants back.
Okay. And Pickles is also here. She is her partner in crime. She's only 6 months old, so she's just getting the lay of the land, but she's getting the bad habits from Nugget.
All right, any questions? You mentioned that you could use apples as well. Was there any other, was that instead of the peaches? Were there other like fruit?
Yeah, I mean, really peaches, nectarines, apricots, any of the stone fruits, really good. Any kind of berries. You could do all berries if you wanted, but had to be kind of sturdy berries. In that case, like if your blackberries weren't very ripe, I would add a little more sugar, and but apples would work, pears would work. I've done it with pears. I've done it with just about everything I can think of that's not citrus, pretty much. Yeah, you can, it's very versatile.
That's great. All right. Oh,
And the farmer's market is the place to go and get your fruit. They've always got great stuff I've never seen before, where different varieties of peaches and nectarines, and it's definitely fruit is always great.
yeah, great. Well, it seems like there aren't too many questions. So like Chef said, please stop by our farmers markets, come get some fruit and other items you can make these recipes with. And also, if you come to our info booth at any of the farmers markets and let us know you attended one of our cooking workshops, you'll receive a $10 produce voucher to spend on our produce. So definitely come let us know. And also follow along on our Instagram or Facebook so that you can learn more about other opportunities, other cooking demos like this, other events that we have going on. And yeah, let's all give a big thank you to Chef Brandon. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Very nice.
Have a good day.